Marriages are fragile bonds that take years to build and seconds to break. David Lawrence learned this the hard way on a Friday evening with his wife Bonnie and their 2 young children, Gerald and Betty. That morning, Bonnie called David at work to say she was taking the day off to go shopping. David had a bad feeling about it. David had a feeling something was off when Bonnie finally got home. He was right. She was dressed up, almost 2 hours late, and didn't have any shopping bags. The family was getting together for their usual Friday meeting, and David was starting to feel uneasy. They hadn't been intimate in over a week, and he was hoping this evening would bring back the spark. But there was a real sense of unease in the air as they retired to the bedroom. David's heart was racing with anticipation, hoping Bonnie's choice of sexual position was a sign of things to come, but his excitement quickly turned to hurt and confusion when she rebuffed his attempts at foreplay. Offering her usual Friday excuse that she was too tired after a hard, David spent the rest of the week searching for any sign of the woman he loved. He wanted to find a glimmer of the love he felt for her, but all he saw was indifference. The distance between them seemed to grow with each passing moment. In that painful instant, David realized the foundation of their marriage was crumbling. He feared that the fragile bond holding their family together was in danger. I was really disappointed. What do you mean by a busy day shopping, enjoying a Friday night with your family, having drinks and dinner with me? Is all of this such hard and boring work for you? I snapped. Are you going to take a shower after your weak pity make-out session instead of answering me? She ignored my words and headed straight to the shower. When she finally returned, I was already lying down. In bed, my back was turned to her. She'd clearly had a change of heart. I get it, you're upset. Sex is so important to you, huh? Fine, but I'm exhausted and can't offer more than a hand job. Her words cut deep. No, it doesn't matter now, I replied bitterly. If you're getting everything you need from someone else, forget it. I'm sorry to trouble you. I'm just a stupid husband. After all, I stayed there, back to her, feeling a cold void between us. She muttered, "Someone's in a foul mood," but I didn't respond. My mind was racing, unable to find peace. This was the first time in our marriage that I'd accused her so bluntly. I'd expected a stronger reaction from Bonnie. My thoughts spiraled, trying to make sense of the rift between us. Had I done something to drive her away? Had she found someone better? Someone else asked me some questions, but I didn't have any answers. I wondered why she had worn her injury to work and to the store, and why she hadn't bought anything. This was so unlike her. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like she was involved in something or someone else. She was probably in bed with her lover during that. She called it a stressful shopping spree and didn't use condoms. She didn't want to risk me finding out by offering me sloppy seconds. I started thinking about our sex life over the past few months. Because of her headaches and bad days at work, our intimate moments had dwindled. I went to the kitchen for a cup of tea. I was looking at my phone to remind myself of what had been going on, and I noticed that our sex life was now only happening on Saturday evenings and sometimes on Sunday mornings. It was obvious that Bonnie and I were not happy. It felt like our everyday life was meant for someone else. This week she had worn very sexy lingerie for the first time, and she came home late, which made me think she was at some sort of party or celebration. Whatever it was, it needed to be exposed, even if it meant the end of our marriage. I remembered an article from one of Bonnie's women's magazines that cited a Gallup poll. It found that about 50% of married women had admitted to cheating. This statistic made me think about the different ways people cheat. It's interesting how husbands react to their wives having an affair. Some are strangely turned on by it and want her to carry on, while others are indifferent and don't care whether she does or not. Then there are those who get consumed by rage and end up in prison due to their excessive acts of revenge. Weak husbands cry when their wives cheat but don't do anything about it. Some might forgive a one-time affair but not a long-term one. I'm sorry, but I would leave if it turned into a long-term mistake. I felt that the term affair summed up my situation best. The next morning, Bonnie made snide comments about our failed sexual encounter the night before as our family prepared to go shopping. My luck changed when a tabloid newspaper ran a front-page story about one of the country's most famous singers leaving her husband just 2 years after their grand wedding. She publicly stated that he had cheated and that she couldn't stay in a marriage. I bought the paper during a coffee break at home. I saw an opportunity to confront Bonnie and show her I was serious. I said I would leave my cheating husband immediately rather than continue a relationship with him. Don't you think there's a serious problem in our marriage that needs to be resolved as soon as possible? Do you really attach such importance to yesterday's little issue? I know you're still bothered by the fact that I get tired sometimes. I saw that anger flashing across her face, but it only fueled my determination. I knew it was time to bring up our issues. There was no concrete evidence against her, just a series of suspicious circumstances. I decided to accept all the possible consequences and confront her about my suspicions of infidelity. Bonnie, I can't ignore this any longer. The late nights, the sexy lingerie, a dwindling intimacy, it all points to something. Are you seeing someone else? My voice trembled with a mix of fear and resolve, knowing that this conversation could shatter everything we had built. In response to her comments, I said yes. It still bothers me that you're so exhausted from your usual weekly schedule. It baffles me why you would dress like an up-class prostitute in sexy lingerie for your called shopping trips and work. What the hell does that mean? Is it my fault that I didn't find anything interesting? She exclaimed. I'm sure you found something more interesting, I retorted. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm convinced you're having an affair. Isn't that right? I can't see any other reason why you refuse to have sex with me on weekdays, except for those rare attempts on Saturday nights. Your behavior doesn't make sense. Otherwise, I looked her straight in the eyes, feeling a surge of confidence, even though the thought of breaking up still made my heart pound. Bonnie seemed somewhat shocked, realizing I wasn't joking. She couldn't make an offensive comment and simply said, I'm really sorry. Are you crazy reading that scandalous newspaper? I'm not crazy, I replied. It's time to pull all the skeletons out of the closet and start living honestly. Rest assured. I'll get to the bottom of this affair, sooner or later. It'd be better for both of us to face the facts and do what's best for our lives. She was too stunned to respond immediately. You must be seeing ghosts in daylight. I've never cheated on you. Is it weird to be tired on a Friday night after a long, stressful week at work? You dress as sexy as a high-class prostitute, but in our marriage, you're as cold as ice. I thought that was a bit strange. She was angry and stormed out of the room, avoiding me for a few hours. That night, we were invited to dinner by our friends, Shah and Christopher, who have kids the same age as ours. Despite our unresolved quarrel, we decided to go. There was a lot of tension between us as we left. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was clear that the confrontation was far from over and that our lives were on the verge of a major shift. Shah asked Bonnie and me about her plans for the future, revealing that she had obtained 4 very rare tickets and had given 2 of them to us. I surprised everyone by saying that I was grateful to Shona, but unfortunately Bonnie and I are now living one day at a time and can't make any future plans. Everyone looked at me in surprise. What do you mean this is exactly what I was talking about today, Bunny? We need to resolve the issues in our marriage before moving forward. Shona, I sense there's tension here. What's happened? It's better to ask Bonnie why we haven't been intimate. I suspect she's cheating on me. I'm pretty sure Bonnie is having an affair. If I'm wrong, I'll go with her to the show and pay for the tickets, hotel and food for the 4 of us out of my gaming account. But if you can show me proof that Bonnie is cheating on me, I'll serve her with divorce papers on Monday morning. I'm tired of her deceit. Christopher tried to mediate, saying that's quite a but. Are you sure she means it? I'm convinced Bonnie is innocent, Shona added, trying to defuse the situation. Bonnie's face lit up, but she said nothing. I could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on us. I'm serious. I keep my promises. I insisted and walked out into the hall. I got Bonnie's purse and gave it to her. I said, Bunny, I'm sure your cell phone is in this purse. Let's settle this now. The room fell silent as everyone waited for her response. There was a thick atmosphere of anticipation and dread. Could you give me your phone and tell me the password if there is no sign of? I'll keep my word and go to the show. But if I find anything incriminating, or if you refuse to give me the phone and try to delete something before I look, I'll take his evidence and file for divorce on Monday. This offer is valid for 4 minutes and only if you hand over your... I took the phone, set a timer for 4 minutes and waited. Shona urged Bunny to give him the phone and Christopher also insisted, but Bunny grouted her purse and ran out of the house without a word. Both Shona and Christopher looked at me in surprise. What will you do now? They asked. I didn't know her password, so I couldn't access the phone even if I had it. I said, as I mentioned, that I'm probably the last person to know anything about this. Shona, you've probably heard the gossip, right? Shona nodded. It's true, but I promise to let you know if I hear anything more. I'll go home to my kids, keep my word, and divorce my cheating wife. Christopher asked if Bunny is innocent, and if he'll really pay for our travel expenses. Bunny was my true love, and I'd rather miss the show than lose her. To take such a big risk, don't forget. I replied, I'm a terrible player who lost both the game and my marriage. Perhaps Bonnie would have been a failure if her lover had been married and didn't care about her, but I'd rather be a loser than a pathetic coward who accepts a cheating wife. My pride won't allow it. I took the kids home as expected, but Bunny wasn't there. She returned an hour later with red eyes and asked if we could talk about our problems. We agreed and sat down at the kitchen table after the kids had gone to bed. She said, "Are you happy that you made me look like a cheater?" In front of our friends, she started. "It's time for me to find out the truth. Are you a shameless woman cheating on me?" I demanded. "No, I'm not," she said quietly, "but I can't deny it anymore. I'm cheating on you with another man." Am I happy that I don't have to pay for Shona and Christopher's travel too? I'm really struggling today. It's one of the worst days of my life. I'm feeling pretty disappointed and empty. I thought we had a happy family. How could you do this to them? The children will suffer the most from all this. Please, don't burn all your bridges before we discuss what can be done to save our marriage. I love you so much, and there is still so much potential in our relationship. Why did you do this? Was I really such a husband and lover that you had to spread your legs for another man, or are there several of them? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Please understand, she begged. This was just a little romantic fling that happens once in a lifetime. It doesn't diminish my love for you and our children. Family comes first for me. I promise I'll become your faithful and loving wife again if you give me a chance. Give me a chance. Who is he, or are they? How long did you meet on the side, and did you bring him into our bed? I demanded. It was just one man, and it didn't happen in our bed. She confessed, tears streaming down her face. It was a mistake, one I deeply regret. Please, let's work through this for the sake of our family. Her words hung in the air, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on us both as we sat in the dimly lit kitchen, grappling with the shattered pieces of our marriage. I asked, "Of course it's just one man. We have strong feelings for each other. We really tried hard to resist temptation, but at a press conference a month or two ago, we finally admitted our feelings for each other. They're very strong, but we agreed that our relationship would be secret and for a limited time. Honestly, he's just the main man in my life. At this point, I don't really care about his identity. Of course, it matters to me," I snapped. "I will find this snake who desecrated my family. Mac, he's going to get what he deserves. If he's married, I'll ask his wife why her disgusting husband doesn't make love to her on weekdays. If he's giving her what he's clearly not giving me, if he's not allowed to give me what I want, then it's time for him to get some help. I'm curious, after you broke up with Glenn and Christopher, did you immediately go to him to end this affair, or are you going to celebrate with him now that you're free and single? You don't have to waste your Saturday night dates. Were lovely. I think it would be great if he could be your legal partner. I just wanted to let you know that I spoke to him today. I told him that you know our secret, and you're not happy about it. I'm married to my dear husband. I love you very much, and truly hope that our marriage is strong enough to overcome this temporary problem. Take a deep breath and listen to me. If you violate this, it will be fatal for you and for our family." I never thought Bonnie was stupid, but I was starting to worry that her lover might have done something terrible to her. I asked, "Are you saying your despicable lover is married and you didn't want to bother his family? It seems like you're more concerned about your lover and his family than about me and our children. I want to know if he's blackmailing you or forcing you into prostitution." When I asked, Bunny started crying and said, "This is just a brief, innocent romance, and it will end soon." She stammered through her tears, "You're a liar. You kept deceiving me even after getting in court, didn't you? Are you vain to keep after that?" I followed the pimp as if nothing had happened. I demanded to speak to him. "My friend has powerful connections, and violence will only create serious problems for our family. When our love decides everything, I will become your loving wife and promise to be faithful to you for the rest of my life." You say violence bothers you, but it seems like your lover is threatening me. I asked, Don't worry, he'll pay dearly. You promised to be a faithful wife. Faithful to your lover, Bunny. Don't you see what a pathetic, cheap girl he's turned you into? Even if he had the devil in him, I shouted as loud as I could, Bonnie, clearly. I knew I'd never see her infidelity as a mere fling, and she began to panic. Running into the bedroom and screaming at the top of her lungs after a sleepless night in the guest room. I left early Sunday morning, leaving Bunny a brief note. I'm going fishing and will be back later this afternoon. I wasn't actually planning on fishing, though. Instead, I drove to a small coastal town where I found a childhood friend's guest house. I'd seen the room the night the four was waiting for me. I arrived in time for breakfast and had a great dinner with my host. I decided to take a leisurely walk to clear my head. I was disappointed in myself for being so naive and failing to see any pattern in Bonnie's excuses for refusing sex and not suspecting what was really going on. Apart from the lack of a bed, there was no concrete evidence. I had presented my arguments and had to give myself some credit for confronting her the moment I noticed the signs of a fake shopping trip, sexed injury, a lake. Return home. I was shocked when, less than 24 hours after my first accusation, Bonnie admitted to cheating. There was no hard evidence, but I managed to get her to confess without resorting to violence. If her affair had been limited to that shopping trip, we might have had a chance to move on together, even if it took some time. However, as the affair continued, instead of ending it immediately, Bonnie foolishly insisted that she would end her innocent romantic feelings right away. I had romantic feelings right away, but I thought that was nonsense. My phone had been off for a while, so I sat on a large rock to check it. There were 5 missed calls and 3 messages from Bunny. They all said the same thing. Call me as soon as you can, Bunny. I'll be home late. See you tomorrow. Bunny and heartfelt messages or expressions of love. Then the phone died again. I thought that divorce would be tough on the children, but as long as Bonnie continued to cheat and let her lover dictate the rules of sex in our marriage, it seemed like the only solution. Bunny wouldn't admit to that last point. I probably wouldn't get the same perspective, but I felt pretty humiliated that evening when I checked my phone. There were several missed calls and a voicemail from a substitute Bunny. I apologize for the pain I've caused you and the children. Of course, my affair is over and you are now my beloved. My husband and I will always be together. I saw this as a late confession, but it was the same as the last one. It didn't matter if she ended the affair right after the press conference or if her fake shopping trip was just that. I guess she might have had a chance, but 2 months wasn't enough. Even though she'd clearly come to terms with everything, it no longer meant anything. When I got back, I was relieved to find Bunny asleep. I slept in the spare room and left for work early the next morning before she woke up. I left a short message on the kitchen table. Bonnie, we'll talk this afternoon as soon as the courthouse opens on Monday morning. I went to file my divorce papers. I filled out the forms at work and then went to Bonnie's. I went to the office to ask her to sign the divorce papers, but she refused and started crying. I left her office, went back to the courthouse and filed for divorce without her signature. It didn't make much difference, maybe just a delay of a couple of weeks. Bunny didn't come home after work, but her sister Melon called and said she urgently needed to talk to me about Bunny. I invited her to come home immediately, and she agreed. Melon arrived and told me that Bonnie was at their parents' house, completely devastated. Melon wanted to know that. I told her the truth about what had happened between me and Bunny. She admitted to cheating on me with her lover, and had obviously intended to continue the relationship after I found evidence of the affair. She didn't even try to stop it when I confronted her. I can't be with a wife who is willing to keep dating and sleeping with the man she cheated on me with, so divorce is the only solution. Is he married? If so, does his wife know about their affair? I don't want to know. Ask his wife. Her name is Karen Haynes. It was clear that Bunny was having an affair with William Haynes's accountant at her workplace. She had met him several times and thought he was a slightly effeminate man who dressed well. I decided it would be a good idea to have a serious talk with William and Karen Haynes, so I asked Melanie to watch the children while I visited them. To my relief, she agreed, saying, "Please understand that the children need you right now." I went to William's house in a respectable neighborhood. A few seconds after I rang the bell, I'm 35 years old. The girl opened the front door. I asked her if her mom and dad were home and she said yes. My mom is here. When Karen came to the door, I introduced myself and said I needed to discuss something with her. She was a stunning woman. She invited me into the kitchen and gestured for me to sit at the table. I did so and said, "I have some sad news. My wife, Bunny, who works at the same company as your husband, has been cheating on both of us for the past 2 months. My husband has been unfaithful to me for the past 2 months. He told your wife that he wanted to limit intimacy to just Saturdays so that she could be a nymphomaniac during their kinky encounters on Fridays. I confronted her about it, and she didn't deny it. William, that evening she confessed everything. She showed no remorse or hesitation. Where is William? I asked. Karen turned pale and answered in a frightened voice. He left. What are you going to do about this sad matter? I inquired. William already knows. I handed him the divorce papers today at my wife's work. I believe all his colleagues at every workplace already know. There was quite a fuss. William told me what happened at work, but I don't know anything. I have friends at William's workplace, but no one wanted to share the details. Karen and I agreed to share all the additional information, and I left her feeling strangely unsettled. How could that fool William cheat on his beautiful wife and have an affair with Bunny? It was no better. I got home and told Melanie about my conversation with William's wife. She had to decide whether or not to tell Bunny what I had done. She should have contacted me about the divorce the next morning at work. Kathy Carson called me and asked me to have lunch with Bunny to discuss some important issues concerning me. I was curious about what she wanted, so I agreed to her proposal without hesitation. We met at a small restaurant, and after some polite small talk, she simply and directly said, "I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to rent a furnished apartment for myself for a while until I feel I've done the right thing by moving in with my boyfriend, Robert. This apartment will." I was surprised that the news of my divorce had spread so quickly. Of course, I was intrigued. C told me about the fair rent and other benefits she proposed, trusting me and Bunny to look after her apartment when I got back to work. I called Melanie and told her that I had rented a furnished apartment for Bonnie until she moved in with William Haynes somewhere. But Melanie said that was impossible because William had gone completely ballistic when he got back from bowling to find his suitcase in the driveway with a security guy guarding the front door. He was on the phone with Bunny, and he accused her of being a prostitute. Melanie had to take care of something urgent and said she'd meet him later. That evening, she came as expected and told me what she had learned about Bonnie's condition. She said she nearly fainted after William's frantic call and took an extra day off work. Melanie, who was married and lived just a few hundred meters from her parents, spent a lot of time with them, supporting Bunny. What interested me was that Bunny and William used the small apartment next to the furniture store as their love nest during their very long lunches on Fridays. William said the apartment was rented by a secret gang of businessmen through an online booking system. He also said it was much cheaper and less conspicuous than a hotel room. Bonnie even went to a very famous historic hotel to celebrate. On Sunday, which was William's birthday, I told Melanie about the fake shopping trip. They had a long lunch and made love in the room where one of the past royals had slept. Bunny realized that her sexy injury was a mistake, which made me suspicious enough to end the marriage before leaving. Melanie packed her suitcase with clothes and other. I told Bonnie that I'd let her know about the divorce and discuss arrangements for the children as soon as possible. It was clear that William had influential connections, so I needed to think of a way to use them against him. After some thought, I had a great idea. I had a brainwave. I called my old friend Nicholson, who's a computer whiz and far more clued up than me, and asked for his opinion. Nicholson got my idea right away and said he'd help the next day after lunch. We decided to drop by William's clan's place in Love Nest, which was exactly where Melanie said it was. It was an office that had been converted into a small apartment. It was the perfect spot for secretive extramarital activities. The heavy wooden door had a mailbox and a small brass sign reading Patent Office. It was a clever disguise for William's secretive indulgences. Back at work, I called Melanie to arrange for a babysitter while I planned to do some shopping after hours. She pleaded with me to take action against William's illicit activities. She also asked me to take action against William's illicit activities. She also promised to keep quiet about the details of the love nest and her assistants, saying it was important to maintain a low profile. I went to a large hardware store as a regular customer, dressed in gray overalls and a baseball cap, so nobody noticed me. Nicholson C. let me know he was ready to go ahead a few minutes later. He said the action was done. I thanked him and said I'd let him know the results as soon as I had them. I didn't think it would be anything too dramatic. The next morning I went back to Will Hayes' place again, dressed in overalls and a baseball cap. I used a cordless drill driver to secure the door with 12 single. I then put in a sheet of stainless steel measuring 50 x 30 cm with bright red writing. It said that a beautifully furnished room is rented for 3 hours. If you want to know more, you can call William Haynes on 1,312,284. The sign was also fixed with single-sided hardened steel screws designed for These screws have specially designed heads that can be screwed in, but not unscrewed. The phone number on the sign was for the office where Bunny and William worked. Nicholson and I thought there'd be chaos at William's workplace because he'd sent out 170 emails to employees, and other the emails were sent to some of the city's most prominent figures. They included a Photoshop image of the new Love Nest door sign and the following note: "Dear married friends, I know how difficult it is to find truly secluded places for private erotic pleasure, especially if your lucky lady or stale is married. Misbehavior in local hotels often lead to costly divorces, but you can avoid it with a cozy, beautifully appointed love hotel in the heart of our city. Rent a room for 3 hours and receive a smartphone door code for a complimentary hotel EXP experience. For more details and additional services, call during business hours." Photo of William Haynes's private apartment. "It can lead to costly divorces, but you can avoid it with a cozy, beautifully appointed love hotel right in the heart of our city. Rent a room for 3 hours and receive a smartphone door code for a complimentary hotel EXP experience. For more details and additional services, call during business hours." Photo of William Haynes's private apartment. 105. It doesn't matter whether a watchman or a construction worker opens a door for you. No one passed me in the few minutes it took to secure the door. Of course, William Haynes and his colleagues would soon be furious, but I didn't care much for those individuals. I remained unaware of what had transpired until Nicholson called me at 2. It was 30 in the morning when he said, "We've locked Arthur Cooper in that sex chamber and he still hasn't emerged. Should we start taking bets?" Rumors were swirling about a curious crowd gathering outside with a radical feminist reporter from the local newspaper, waiting to hear a statement after considering my options. Nicholson suggested we start a betting pool. The apartment had double doors, ensuring that the locked lovers couldn't hear anything as I drilled the locks after Cooper. A notorious 52-year-old bachelor and chairman of the local Green Party had been in there for over 3 hours. The 28-year-old bachelor and chairman of the local Green Party was known for stirring up trouble and legendary for breaking up marriages. I guess our curiosity about this woman was piqued, though I didn't win the bet. Nicholson and I were taken aback when the name was announced shortly after 2. M. Alexandra Lawrence, who is 41 years old and Old Bond, was the leader of a local conservative party and married to a successful businessman. There's an old saying that love is blind, and most people agreed with it when they discovered who she had spent the night with in that love room. Later, they debated why she had waited so long to open the door, turning it into a public spectacle. Cooper panicked, called the wrong people, and bore the blame for everything. These individuals were the ones who spread rumors about the door issue before the right people were called to fix it. Alexandra's conservative colleagues, she was fired as chairwoman, and her husband left her when he found out she'd spent the night with Cooper. Shah's political career didn't interest most people, but his charisma with women made him a bit of a local hero. When he walked into a bar, he often got free drinks from some of the regulars. More women wanted to see if the rumors about his prowess and physique were true, so he shared details with his admirers. After some time, Bonnie Khan signed the divorce papers, and we had a serious discussion about joint custody. Bunny and I agreed to alternate weeks between my house and Captain's apartment, since Christmas coincided with my visit to C. I invited Bonnie to stay at C's house with me and the kids that week. She slept in the guest room, and for the rest of the week things seemed to be back to normal. That evening, after putting the kids to bed and sitting in the living room with wine and cheese, she brought up the topic of Hannes. He never expected his wife to discover his affair, but since I revealed the truth was too much for her, she kicked him out of their home, which triggered a mental breakdown for him. He accused Barbara of being a malevolent witch responsible for all his woes. Naturally, their once unique and romantic love story quickly soured into one of regret and animosity. Bonnie shared with me the office gossip, William's love nest, the Lawrence Cooper affair, and the barrister's divorce that earns William the nickname the Pimp. These revelations turned him into a laughingstock among his colleagues. His former apartment gang friends became his friends even blamed him for the scandal involving Alexander Lawrence. They even held William liable for financial losses, and built he was in for repairs to an expensive apartment door, refused to pay, and was facing threats of exposure to more unsavory activities. He quit his job and left town in search of better prospects. The next time Bonnie and I saw each other was at a New Year's party with friends. We surprised everyone by spending the night together at the same table as Shona and Christopher. When Bonnie and I were together, our family traditionally spent a week in the Canary Islands every February. An unexpected issue arose when the children began to ask, "Please, Dad, can Mum come with us?" After a heated argument, I relented and asked Bonnie because I'd booked the hotel room quite late, but I was lucky to get a family room instead of one with separate beds, which was our usual preference. Bunny and I had to share a bed, but we made the best of it. We tried our best to make this week special on our last night at the hotel. I woke up to the sound of. I heard Bunny quietly crying and I was worried. I asked her if she was feeling unwell or if we needed to go to the hospital. Through tears, she replied that she was crying because she was so grateful and happy for this past week. It had been the happiest time of her life, and she was going to miss it. She was sorry if she had woken me and made me feel the weight of her. I was really affected by her words. I gave her a hug and said, "Bunny, it's been a great week for us." She looked at me, almost surprised, and said, "This is the best thing that's happened since we had kids." She added, "I love you so much, and I want you to know I'm the happiest woman in the world." I was crying a lot in the hotel room throughout the week. It was clear that Bonnie was still my true love. I didn't think anyone I met during our time apart could replace her, so I'd already decided to suggest putting the divorce on hold indefinitely before leaving the hotel. We didn't go into it in much detail. We didn't get into the reasons for our past issues or what happened during our separation. Bunny said she hadn't dated anyone during that time. She thought we were still married until the divorce was finalized. Surprisingly, she never asked me about my activities during our time apart. While I couldn't change the past, I was determined not to repeat our mistakes. Bunny and I decided to talk about our future and what we needed to do to be happy as a family again. Thanks to everyone who has watched my story. Please feel free to share your thoughts and explore the other videos. Your support means a lot.